What's going on, my people? Welcome back to another episode of the Stop the Count podcast. In this episode, I'll talk about the UFC card in Singapore, a very good weekend in boxing, and Milan's last game versus Bologna. First, for the UFC card, it's happening at 2 in the morning on Saturday, so this will be a very tough card to watch. It is headlined by Max Holloway versus Chang Sung-jang, otherwise known as the Korean Zombie. It's a card that has some very good fights on it. I'll start off by mentioning a great women's fight, that being flyweights Erinblanchfield versus tailasantos. Erin is what many people see as the next big thing in women's MMA. She's only 24 years old and should arguably already be fighting for a title. Now, Talia is, of course, coming back from a close decision loss to former champion Valentina Shevchenko. Both are amazing fighters, and honestly, this fight is good enough to be a main event of a fight night in its own right. This is an extremely hard fight to pick, but I feel Talia will be a little bit too much for Erin and will get the win. Also, Giga Chikadaz versus Alex Caceres. This fight is going to be amazing. Alex is coming off of a fight of the night performance versus Daniel Pineda. Wow, Giga hasn't fought since his loss to Calvin Kattar over a year ago. Prior to that loss, Giga was looking amazing, having 3 straight knockout wins. But getting back to this fight, it's going to be amazing. For me, the winner would still be Giga, but this fight is going to be close. The co-main event is a fight I'm not excited about at all. Anthony Smith fights ryanspann, and in all honesty, I could care less about who wins this fight. They have fought each other before about 2 years ago, and Anthony Smith was victorious by submission in the first round. If I were to pick a winner in this fight, it would be ryanspann. Now, for the main event, Max Holloway versus the Korean Zombie. Another great fight on this card. Max is one of the best featherweights to ever do it. He's fought some of the biggest names in the UFC and won many great fights. But there's one name he's always going to be linked to, and that name is Alexander Volkanovski. He's fought Volk 3 times and hasn't been able to win any. Out of the top 5 featherweights in the UFC, excluding himself, he's beaten 3 of them. The only one left for him to fight is Ilia Topuria. In Max's last fight, he fought Arnold Allen, and Max looked amazing, showing us fans that doubted him he hasn't lost a step. Max is a great kickboxer. He uses his feints very well, and the pressure he applies to his opponents from the start is crazy, and it shows the great stamina Max has. Max is very creative, and let's not even talk about Max's chin. Max has one of the best chins ever. He's taken some hard-ass shots and has never been knocked out. It's crazy. Max's ground game as well is very underrated. Will he use it? Probably not. Max, as most fighters who fight the way he does, has a problem with scar tissue. He cuts up really easy, and it's almost always a problem for him going into his fights. And now, for the Korean Zombie. The longtime UFC fighter is, as well as Max, a veteran of the featherweight division. His last fight was against champion Alexander Volkanovski, and it did not end well for the Korean Zombie. But getting into how I see the Korean Zombie fight, he's a very good boxer himself. Zombie likes to counter his opponents, and his power hand is his right hand. I don't really like how he pressures his opponents. He usually stands in front of them, wanting to bait them in, and when he attacks, he has no defense, so he gets hit with some hard shots. But if there's one thing these two have in common, it's their chin. Zombie's chin is almost as good as Max's, but honestly, nobody's chin is as good as Max's. Zombie likes to keep his distance at times and then lunges in, as he usually has the longer reach advantage. But it's not always the best thing to do. At any time, you could get caught with a big shot, and Zombie is already at a huge disadvantage defensively, as he's not the best defensively. He usually leaves his hands real low, and that isn't a good thing. Now, for Zombie's ground game, it's also very underrated, but I just don't think it's as good as Max's either. I also don't think it'll be needed at all this fight. Now, for who I have winning this fight, I believe Max Holloway will pull off the knockout victory. This will be an extremely exciting fight. The Korean Zombie is going to come out and put on a show. He hasn't fought in the continent of Asia in almost 4 years and hasn't lost in Asia since 2009. This will be an amazing fight. It is happening at 5 in the morning my time, so that will suck, but oh well. Now for boxing, starting with the top rank card headlined by Jaredanderson versus andreiirudenko. But first, talking about some prospects on the card, the first being Bruce Shushucarrington. Shushu has really made a fan out of me recently with 2 great knockout performances in a row. Will that continue? Hopefully. But he's not the only highly touted amateur fighting on this card, as Olympic gold medalist bakhodirjalolov is making his top-ranked debut and currently has a record of 12 wins, 0 losses with 12 knockouts. He's an absolute beast, and already right now, he's probably the best heavyweight prospect in boxing and on this card. His power is real. Also on the card is someone who to me is a future star of boxing, highly touted lightweight prospect Abdullahmason. I've really liked how Top Rank has been handling his career so far, not rushing him into anything, and I'm expecting another amazing performance. But now for the main event, Jaredanderson versus andreiirudenko. There really isn't much to say about this fight. Top Rank is still trying to grow Jared, giving him opponents with different styles and different characteristics in each fight. In Jared's last fight, he did not look the best, but he was still able to get a decision victory. Jared was fighting very smart behind his jab and actually boxing. That was the first time in Jared's career he wasn't able to win by knockout. His opponent, although, did get knocked down early in the fight. For Jared's opponent, andreiirudenko, in my opinion, he has a puncher's chance like most heavyweights, and that's all. I don't see there being any other way he wins this fight against a great heavyweight prospect like Jared Anderson. Now, for the best heavyweight fighting on this day, Oleksandr Usyk takes on Daniel Dubois for Usyk's unified heavyweight titles. It's a great card with some great prospects on it, just to mention a few, starting with hamzahsheeraz. He's facing a fellow unbeaten opponent, but I feel Hamza's power will be too much, especially combined with his boxing ability. Also mentioning fellow Ukrainian Andreiirudenko, this featherweight is a budding star. His last couple fights, he's been able to show his slick boxing ability and also mixing it in with his power. Solomennikov has that dog in him. If there's one prospect you choose to watch on this card, Oleksandrsolomennikov is my recommendation. But now, talking about the main event, Oleksandr Usyk versus Daniel Dubois for Usyk's unified heavyweight titles. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I fucking hate the heavyweights, but there's one heavyweight I really enjoy watching, and that is Oleksandr Usyk. He's right now, to me, the best heavyweight in the world. The Olympic gold medalist and former undisputed cruiserweight champion is an absolute beast, and it's only a matter of time before he becomes the second ever two-time undisputed champion people actually care about. But talking about Daniel Dubois, Daniel obviously has fight-ending power as most heavyweights. Daniel has a record of 19 wins, 18 of his wins coming by knockout. But Daniel has also shown he could be stopped before, having been dropped 3 times in his last fight and being stopped by Joe Joyce a little less than 3 years ago. Daniel has power behind everything. His jab will be the most important punch in this fight. A big problem I see from Dubois is he smothers his punches at times, and that could be the worst thing for a heavyweight of his caliber and style. Against a fighter like Usyk, coming in reckless won't be a smart game plan. Dubois is going to really have to shore up that defense. But now for champion Oleksandr Usyk. Usyk is an absolute beast, having already been undisputed cruiserweight champion to now being a unified heavyweight champion, only needing the WBC belt to be undisputed. Usyk is also going into this fight with a couple disadvantages he's used to by now, as Usyk is almost always at a weight disadvantage, as he usually weighs in at about 220 pounds and most heavyweights come in at about 240. But now talking a little bit more about his skill set, Usyk does a great job staying active and giving his opponents different angles. The biggest weakness I would say for Usyk is when his opponents are at distance. They are more than likely going to be able to land a shot, as they usually have a reach advantage. But besides that, Usyk does a great job mixing his punches well between the head and body. Usyk needs to keep moving, not standing still and giving Dubois a target to hit. I don't believe Usyk has enough power for this division, but the accumulation of punches over 12 rounds really take their toll. But now for who I have winning this fight, I believe 100% this fight will not end in a knockout, but instead in a very close split decision win for Oleksandr Usyk. I believe Dubois is a great fighter and is probably better than Usyk's last opponent in Anthony Joshua, and has more of a chance of pulling off the upset on Usyk than AJ ever did. But like I said, I believe Oleksandr Usyk will be the winner. And now for the final boxing card. It's a Golden Boy card headlined by minimum weight champion Oscarcollazo, making his return to Puerto Rico for the first time as a champion. He's going up against Garen Diagan. I won't really be watching the card, but I will watch the main event, so I will only be talking about the main event. Oscarcollazo versus Garen Diagan. This will be Oscar's first title defense, and there's no better place for him to defend it than in Puerto Rico, his home country. Oscar is probably one of the least known world champions, mostly due to his weight class, but it's in no way because of how he fights. He's an electric fighter. And in terms of the little marketing his promotion, which his Golden Boy gives him, because it seems to me if you're a golden boy fighter, the only way you can become a star is if you market yourself. They really need a complete overhaul of their marketing team. Because if you're not a hardcore boxing fan, you wouldn't know this fight would be happening. But getting back to this fight, Garan is one of the many lower weight fighters from the Philippines, and this will be his first chance at a world title. He's currently on a 2-fight win streak, one coming by knockout and the other a close split decision victory. Prior to that, he was on a 2-fight losing streak, one by knockout and a closer unanimous decision loss. Diagan is a very patient fighter. He likes to keep his distance, but this, of course, can be a problem for him because the farther away he is from his opponent, the more he's going to have to open himself up to land a shot. Garan does have power, although his record might not show. There is points where Garan does get kind of reckless, but in this fight versus Oscar, he's going to really have to calm down with that, knowing the power Oscar possesses. Now, for champion, Oscarcollazo. Like I said, Oscar just won this world title, his last fight versus former champion Melvin Jerusalem, and by stoppage. Oscar was also able to become the fastest world champion in Puerto Rican history, winning this title in only his 7th professional fight. Oscar is someone who I would believe to be a slow starter. He takes his time and breaks his opponents down round by round. He doesn't come out looking for one big shot to end the fight. Oscar does a great job showing his opponents some great feints. Oscar is not the most experienced fighter, like I said. He's only fought 7 times. Yes, he had a good amateur career, but the pros are a totally different game. Oscar has to be the aggressor. That's where he does his best work. Although he will have to be careful. It was only a couple fights ago where Oscar was dropped. He was still able to perform well after that, but you never know what could happen. But now, for who I have winning this fight, I believe this fight is going to be another close fight, but Oscarcollazo will pull off the victory by knockout. In more specific, a body shot knockout. This fight is going to be good. These lower weight class guys are so underrated, and with no UFC on Saturday night, watching this card won't be that bad. Now for Milan's game versus Bologna. What a start for Bologna, having a ball come off the crossbar in the first minute of the game. After that start, it was a very even game from both teams playing well until a ball from the LeBron James of soccer, Christian Pulisic, comes in and another new signing in Tijani Rangers is able to just get to it and send it in to Olivier Giroud, who's able to put it away, but that's not it. LeBron James was not done. Christian Pulisic scores a fucking banger about 10 minutes later, giving Milan a boost to their lead. But this goal was great in my opinion. Just outside the box, nobody was expecting it, and Pulisic slots it away, putting Milan up 2-0. There really wasn't another close chance for either teams the rest of the half, but for some players I really like from the first half was of course Christian Pulisic and Tijani Reinhardt. But if I were to say just one, it would be Tijani. I feel he was able to control the midfield, really helping Milan out on the attack and defensively. But it was still a great first half from both of Milan's new signings. Now, the second half was again extremely even, and I honestly think Bologna was the better team this half. Neither teams had any close chances. Milan did have a good chance as a Rafael Leao shot hit the post late in the half, but besides that, him and Theo Hernandez had a pretty bad game, I would say. Milan's goalkeeper Mike Maignan did make some good saves, and that's who I would say was the star of the second half. Without Mike, I'm pretty sure Milan don't go the whole game without allowing a goal. That's the star of the second half for me, Mike Maignan. Nonetheless, it was an all-around great team performance, and especially for Milan's new signings. Their next game comes Saturday versus Torino at the San Siro. They split the league games last year, but Torino was able to knock out Milan of the Copa with a few minutes left in the game. In their last 6 matches against each other, Milan have a record of 3 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses. Torino are coming off of a draw this past Monday against Cagliari. Torino is a hard team to score against, but it's not the easiest thing for them to score either. But now, talking about Milan, I'm pretty sure Leao will play and Milan will come out in this new 4-3-3 Pioli has been sending out, and this will no doubt be a hard game. Milan needs to come out like they did in the first half versus Bologna, not like they did in the second half. Milan's defense, to me, in more specific, the right back position, is the position I'm most worried about. I didn't really like how Calabria played versus Bologna, and it's going to be a very tough game, and it's going to be a very tough game for him, if I were to say. Although I believe Milan will be able to pull off the 1-0 victory, securing 3 points before a tough set of games Milan have coming up. I won't be talking about Chivas' game versus Cholos because they haven't played at the time of this recording. I will probably talk about them in my next video. That'll be it for me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, follow me on Twitter at StopTheCount10. See you guys next week as I talk about what went down in these fights. See you then.